So what we want to do is this is the topic as it was defined. And the title of the presentation is really way too narrow, because if you're just going to talk about, am I going to be a custom developer or am I going to develop on a platform, then this conversation is over in 10 minutes. Because we can talk about the pros and the cons of each, and then it's over. I'm sorry, what? That was not to me, right? Okay. Okay, so my name is Harry Cederbaum. I've been at Twillory. It's a men's fashion startup, dress shirt startup. We've been around for about 5.5 years. As to my own background, I got involved in website building, not so much that I am a developer, not at all, but I'm a customer of website developers. There was a website that was started in the late 90s to publicize the shiurim of Rabbi Moshe Weinberger of Eish Kodesh of Woodmere. And at that time, I had just been recently retired from Booz Allen and Hamilton, which is a management consulting company. And I was looking for some way to spend my time before I was going to engage in something else. And there were 2 builds, custom builds. Everything was custom. The only platform that was available around that time was Yahoo Site Builder. I think it was just starting up. So this seems to mean something to you. And so we had 2 builds, and a second development was started around 2005 when we moved from cassettes and CDs to MP3 downloads. And towards the end of the life cycle of ravmosheweinberger.com, before everything was given over to YUTorah.org, we had 3,500 shiurim there, and there were only MP3 files, and everything was download. And then towards the end, it was free anyway, and so there was just no point anymore, unless you were very, charitably inclined, which I wasn't, because I'd given hundreds and thousands of hours to that effort. Now at Twillory, we opened our website about just under 5 years ago. In June, it will be 5 years. We have gone through, like it shows, 5 development cycles, 3 on Shopify and 2 before that on WooCommerce. So WooCommerce is what's called an open source platform. We'll get to that. And Shopify is a closed platform. All right, so this was going to be my grand audience interaction slide, and so who are you is important, because that'll allow me to frame and where I go. So first of all, so how many of you have a website? Who has a functional website? So you all want to build a website. Okay, there goes that slide. Great. You're not doing that. You're not rebuilding. Okay, what are you hoping to sell? Physical product? Okay, so everybody, fine. So is it in, let's just try to categorize. Apparel, anyone? Yes.
Service as well.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so is there physical product and also service? So would that be consulting services, for example?
Yeah, I can't even envision the business concept, but some medical physician service through
Okay, all right, through an online, platform we don't know yet, but right, now you're right. It's difficult to say platform because everything is a platform, but here we have a platform again, as opposed to custom. All right, so then we're through here. What I want to accomplish tonight is that we understand the basics and the drivers that get you to website design. Because you don't just start one day and say, I'm going to have a website. There's too much information here, although we can skip some of it. And we want to understand what drives a site build. Why are you building a site? So for example, you were just telling us why you were building a site. And you also have to remember that the code, the custom code, or the platform is merely a tool. It is one step in the value chain of getting you from your idea to actually selling product, marketing your product, and being successful in the e-commerce space. And then at the end, what I'd like to do is, after sort of coming up with some anecdotal things that happen to us and others that I know, make sure that you know what questions to ask, whether it is internally in your companies or of a developer that you hire or the developer that you have in-house. All right. You're starting to think about building your website. What is most important? What's more important than anything else? It has to be user-friendly. Okay. What else? Any other ideas? Come on, you guys, you got to work with me. There's only like 8 of you here. Yes?
It has to be searchable on Google.
Has to be searchable on Google. Okay. You have to know what you're selling. Think about the building process of the website rather than the end result. So I'm going to rephrase the question. You're starting to think about building your website. How do you begin? How do you start? All right. So many will say, well, I have to know my platform that I want to build on. I have to know what I want to sell, what I want to build. To me, and I'm very opinionated about that, it's the developer. Because a good developer in a poorly structured site build attempt can still make it work, can still make it function well. Why? Because a good developer, by the way, a developer is a he, a she, a small company, and a large company. So I've covered everything. It's also virtual out in India or not Pakistan so much, but in the Ukraine or anywhere else. Okay, developer is that noun for everything. So your developer can help you take a bad idea or poor design that you internally might have come up with, and it can be an internal developer, and turn it into something that will allow you to sell something. Conversely, a poor developer, let's say that Shopify, which is the platform that we currently use on Twillory. So let's say that Shopify is a good platform, and it is. If you have a bad Shopify developer, a developer who does not understand Shopify well or how to use it completely, is going to wreck it for you. You're not going to have a good site. It won't be searchable. The previous presenter talked about all the things that you have to do to make your site searchable, discoverable within Google. It's just not going to function well. Your developer likely is somebody, or should be somebody, who has access to a network of other developers whom they can ask for guidance and advice if they get stuck. And your developer is somebody who's done this before. How many of you currently have a developer, or in-house or externally? Good, meaning you're just starting out, which is fine. Next, what's your expected outcome? What do you want your site to be able to do for you? Presumably what? Sell, exactly. Sell stuff. But it's not just about selling. For example, we at Twillory, we say shirts are a commodity. Shirts are the fastest growing over the past 3 or 4 years men's online bought clothing article. So we want to be sure that we can get into all of your closets in a shirt sense, not in any other sense. And we believe at Twillory that we have to make it easy for you to replace your current shirts, or when you want to buy shirts, you can find them. It has to easily be selectable by color, by style, by collection, and we haven't gotten all the way there yet. But that's the business imperative, is to provide a good service, an easy experience to buy shirts. And of course now, that's the business imperative. Before we get to the technology, that means a good selection, sizing, the quality has to be there, good customer service. There's a lot of business imperatives that come into play long before you ever start thinking about building your site. What function is driving the development? When I was at Booz Allen and Hamilton in the consulting world, we had an investment bank as a client, which had, ready for this? We're talking 22 years ago, I'm old, okay? 22 years ago, they had a $1 billion annual technology budget, which means within all the parts and all the sections and areas of the investment bank, they spent $1 billion. The mandate came down from the C-suite that they had to eliminate 20% of that budget. So the first thing that happened was that all the toy projects of the various head of departments were eliminated. So is your website going to be a toy project because somebody in your small or large company thinks that it's a good idea to have the website? Or is it something that you really need in order to support the sales? Interview your colleagues, people in your network. What factors played into developing your website? Whom did you use? What drove the development of the website? So is it something you have the most amazing? Yes, go ahead.
So the business should drive the development.
Absolutely, it has to be. The development, the website, the platform, it's a tool. It is a necessary step step, if you want to be in e-commerce, it is a necessary step in order to get your website up. Do you have the most amazing product and you just need to get a site going right now, at least to get it out in front of the public? And then you can wait and build the better capabilities much later on. But at least you have a product out. Is it a short-term versus a long-term decision? Now, who can tell me what this means? This acronym. It's an acronym. Who can tell me what this means? Nobody here is old enough. Close, very good. Close, very close. It means garbage in, garbage out. It is variously attributed to an IBM programmer in the early 50s, and also to a US Army mathematician when they were putting together whatever formula they were putting together in order to win the Cold War. So garbage in, garbage out means the following. If you have, and it means several things, but a combination of all of them. If you have a good machine, which in this case could be an already existing website, let's say, that you want to update, but you don't have the right data, you don't feed it the right data, meaning you're not clear on your business imperatives. What is it that I'm trying to accomplish with this website? If my initial design not on paper, but in wireframes, is not clear on how I want this to work, then I'm going to have garbage coming out. Then the website that I've built is not going to be a good website. And a more defined and elegant looking model says the following. The garbage data, okay? If I haven't done good market research about whether shirts are going to sell, all right, so we had good market research because it said that between 2009 and 2013-14, when we were first germinating this idea, men's dress shirts were growing had occupied 28%, and the men's apparel market was growing faster than the women's apparel market. So that's good data. And so that's the lower side. But if you have a garbage model, meaning bad development, then you're not going to have a good site coming out. And conversely, you can have the best website, but if you don't build, let's say, again, shirts, if you don't make good shirts, eventually the market's going to catch up to you and tell you that your shirts are no good, and therefore, we don't want your shirts. All right. Okay, we're getting into the meat and potatoes. What makes up a site? So what do you need before you can even turn the thing on? So after I had put the outline and the skeleton of my presentation together, I wanted to do my own thing first, and then I went, of course, to Mr. Google to see what does Google have to say about building a site. So this is what I found first. There are several search terms that I used, and one of them was, okay, how do I start my own business, an online business? That was a proxy for e-commerce. And here's what came back. Notice what the URL is. It came from LegalZoom, which is a lawyer company. Obviously, they were advertising their services for starting your company. And I thought the sequence of 4, 5, and 6 was pretty fantastic because they said, pick a domain name after you've started building your store, then you get paid, and then you market your business. So I thought that was pretty cool, clearly not applicable to here. All right. Who can tell me what a URL is? Yeah. Okay, that's gewaltig. It's this. I like that. It is the Uniform Record Locator, I think, is the correct term. Early websites used to be IP addresses, 116.27.95.123 or something like that. So URL. You have a site. Does somebody have a name which they're willing to share for their product or their site that they would like to have that they don't yet have? That was a long question. Okay, so let's go with Twillory. When we decided to name our company Twillory, we obviously wanted to have the name, the URL, www.twillory.com. So you have to search once you have your name idea and get the name. So there are companies called GoDaddy, Register, Bluehost, Domain.com, all these companies where you have to buy for $7.95 per year, you buy your domain name. Okay, so you need that. If you don't have the name, you don't have anything. Shem Tov, Mishem Tov. It's the best thing to have. You have to have your name. Then, regardless of whether you're going custom or platform, your code, the thing that's developed in Ruby, something other, PHP and whatnot, coding languages where liquid, where which of I don't understand anything. That has to sit somewhere. So when you're sitting in front of your PC and you've downloaded Excel, that sits on your PC. Your PC is the server. If you go to platforms, some of the platform companies, they will host your code, or you have to negotiate with a host and you have to buy space. That could be cloud-based. It could be dedicated server, depending on how much bandwidth you need and how many images you want to serve out. You need that. There's things that download speed you have to consider. If you don't have something called an SSL certificate, nobody's going to buy from you, because that's when you see HTTP, at the end of that you see a little S. S says the site is secure and I can safely, we hope, give my credit card over there and pay. You need to establish an account with a payment gateway, payment card processing company. You need to have somebody, you need to arrange with somebody to take your credit card and then deposit the money in your account. So you have to open all of these various accounts, which, by the way, for the tape and the custom build that we did, I ran all of that. I had absolutely no idea what I got myself into, and it was very challenging because, you know, it was happening in weekends and evenings, and you know, family was not happy. And then you have to, if you're shipping physical product, okay, so this does not apply to you, because you're doing a service. But if you're shipping a physical product, you need some API-connected program or piece of software that is going to allow you to use a UPS account or a FedEx account or a USPS account, and then to print the label from the little Zebra printers or, you know, whatever it is that you're using. And then, of course, and last, really last, not least at all, but only at the end do you start dealing with your own content. And your developer, your good developer, will guide you in all these things. It's actually, I had an interesting situation. We got the URL, and a friend of mine has a code company, and he had a logo, which was on all of his products. And then a competition company a competitor came by, a company that had something similar many years earlier, and forced him to change it. So he was able to negotiate, and that has to do with URL and you know, hosting and all these things. He was able to negotiate an exit strategy for that, and now the logo on all his products has changed. So you have to be careful in all of these things. We got 2 nasty letters from competing companies about our logo or the way that we use a certain word in advertising, and they wanted us to stop. And we said, "I'm so sorry. You have no legal recourse here because what we're doing is a common use verb," and they couldn't change it, but they were not happy with it. Okay, so now your site is. How are we doing? Okay, now your site is built. Now what? You have to maintain it. So let's say if you're on WooCommerce, which is an open source platform, the app vendors will drive updates. Updates have to be put in. Monitoring and analytics. Is my site up? Okay, I have something on my phone that if my site goes down, I get something. Shopify has automated alerts at all times. I'm sure BigCommerce has it, WooCommerce, don't remember, Magento. Most of the upper level hosting platforms and other sites have a monitor in place. And even if you go custom, you can buy or get a code library that will allow you. You have to monitor what's happening with your sites. Load speed. We recently had an issue, this is just 2 weeks ago, where our our graphics person forgot to shrink a hero image down to the proper website size. So normally that needs to be around, let's say, 150 to 250K. This file was coming in at about 3.5 meg. And we got an alert that our load speed of our home page had slowed down. So when we did, and all of a sudden the conversion rates dropped because all of the advertisements that were driving to our home page were not converting, or many of them were not converting, because people said it takes too long to load your site. I'm leaving. Or so somebody on whom you spend money in order to get them to come to your site left because our internal mess up. Okay. New features, of course, you always want to build new things, and that's regardless of whether you're on a platform or on a custom build. All right, so now let's say I'm going custom. Oh, there was a gentleman here who was telling us that he was already in the later stages of going custom. I'm going custom. Now, the disclaimer is that this is the only slide that is truly dedicated to custom. So there's a lot of information, and I'll try to go through it quickly. But the slides, I can send them out if you give me your, if you give me a card or email address. I'll be happy to send it out. Okay. Ding. Here we go. So custom consists of 3 major subheadings. Let's start with the developer. If you're going custom, then it means you are handing everything over to the developer. Now, whether you have a graphics person in-house or not, okay, fine. Maybe you have the developer in-house, or you have an outsourced developer. Your developer has to know how to code, and this is Ruby and Liquid and PHP and what all the other languages, it's called Ruby on Rails, I think. What all the other languages are, they now have to know how to do that. They have to know what libraries, code libraries exist. They have to have some team depth. We were recently, 3 years ago, approached by somebody as a developer when we were first thinking of switching from WooCommerce to Shopify. It's one guy. Now, it's hard. I'm opinionated about that, but it's hard for one guy, woman, in this instance, one person, to know everything. There are many who do, but then my concern is always, what if this person gets hit by a truck? It's a very fatalistic view of the world, but if that person gets hit by a truck and they didn't document your code well, then you're finished. Then it takes a tremendously long amount of time to get somebody else in, and they then have to learn the code that already exists from a previous developer who may have a different developing style, and most likely they will say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. I'm happy to do a rebuild for you, but I'm not touching that code. So the developer in a custom world is much more important, but also a much more vulnerable point in your business, regardless of whether that's an internal developer or an external developer. Now, as far as your business goes, you have to develop your UX, your user interface. You have to know how to position your product from a technical. We're now out of the business imperative and we're in the technical side. How are you presenting your product? It has to have SKUs, which are called what? Stock keeping units. Again, if you're in a physical product or if you're in a download. Even the MP3s that we sold online in the old custom model, they all the MP3s had SKUs. You have to be able to uniquely identify a product. So let me give you this example. Here, this is a shirt. Well, of course it's a shirt. Okay. We sell shirts in 3 different fits. So this is the tailored fit. I size up because I'm really too fat to wear tailored fit, but I want to say that I can wear the tailored fit. So this is a tailored fit. It comes in 18 sizes. Then there's the extra trim fit, for not me certainly, comes in another 14 sizes, and then there's traditional, which is what I should be wearing, which is a slightly larger fit, more room for the boy's stomach, and that's another 14. So that's 28, and another 18 is, what's the math? 44. There's 44 different sizes. I can't just say, here's the pink, blue striped shirt. I need to have 44 unique SKUs for any software, any warehouse, any shipping product, anything to identify this particular shirt in this particular size. So, and then again, the internal team depth, we were 4. There were 4 of us when we started Twillory all these many years ago. And you need to have people who have ability. Somebody has to be in marketing, somebody has to be in finance, somebody has to be in product design, somebody has to be in operations. So the problem was when we were looking around to find a person to deal with the technology, and I looked around and everybody had taken a really giant leap backwards. So that left me there. I was a novice. I did not know anything other than what I had seen on the custom development side. It was a very challenging transition. And then, of course, the side components. API, who knows what an API is? Application, oh, you gotta go. No, you go. Okay, API stands for Application Program Interface. So, for example, let me give you a simple example. If your printer wants to talk to your computer, even whether it's connected through a cable or Wi-Fi, the printer knows what the computer's requirements are in order to send data to the printer. So that's an application it's like a plug. It's a universal black box. You plug in from here, I plug in from there, and then the two of us are going to have a conversation. You need some piece of software that talks to shipping. You need a piece of software that talks to the warehouse. You need a piece of software that talks to the credit card processor. And the list goes on and on and on and on. So, and then the question is how well, oops, didn't want to do that. How well is the code actually documented? And so in the end, everything can be done in custom development, but it is much more challenging. So now, when do you do for sure custom development? There was a gentleman here before, we were schmoozing, talking in between the two sessions, and he said that he has an extraordinarily complex site build. And he says, I couldn't find anything on any platform that would allow me to do that. So if you have something very complex, the example that I like to give is, let's say, Ford Motor Company or Mitsubishi or any car company. You have a virtual reality 360 view inside the car. You have a lot of video. You have a lot of imagery. You have build your car. I'm inclined to think, I want to believe, I don't know the answer, I'm inclined to think that car companies build their own sites. It's custom. Because it's too difficult to try to assemble all the components on a platform. And typically, maybe Magento, I wouldn't know the answer to that. And so then all these things go into building your site. But again, you are highly, highly, highly dependent on your developer, whether that's internal or external, because it's, again, unless it's well documented, you can't just easily go look at the code and say, oh, I understand this. Whereas if you code to a platform, there are certain conventions that the platform vendors would like to ask you to observe, and most good programmers will do that. Okay, so now, platforms. There are more than 2 types of platforms, but for the purposes of this discussion, there are 2 major types of platforms. Open source. So I'm reading the definition. Open source means that source code is available for the modification by other developers. It's usually free and collaboratively developed. What that means is, here's a piece of code that somebody has developed. Take it and do with it whatever you will. All right, so I can take an open source, whatever the languages, I don't know what that would be. I can take an open source set of code, and I can customize it up the wazoo as much as I want. And that is what we did on WooCommerce, which is where we started out. The reason why we started out with WooCommerce is because that since we didn't have a real tech nerd in the startup group, it would be easier to administer, and it was. So WooCommerce is a platform that is built on the WordPress blogging platform. And WordPress as a blogging platform has been around for a number of years. And so it's very popular, and many people are blogging. And somebody at some point said, okay, you know what? It's such a popular platform, and people want to buy and sell things. Why don't we bolt on a shopping cart on top of it? You know what? What happened to us is that we over-customized because we needed to have certain kits, shirts together with the ties, and then with a dynamic discount. And if you throw in a pair of, another tie, then it gets cheaper. So we had a lot of customization in this open source. And then every so often what happened, of course, was that WooCommerce updated, and then all of our customization flew out the window and had to be rebuilt. It was not a pretty experience. On the other hand, and by the way, that doesn't mean that open source platforms are bad. They are not. But if you can utilize what exists without having to customize too much, then there's no problem. And you get up to speed very, very quickly. If the documentation for WordPress is ample. They have videos all over the place. And so all you do is you read, you follow, you put up a picture, you play around with it a little bit, and probably within half a day to a day, you can have a basic website even with a shopping cart established. Now, you need all the back end. You need a credit card processing company, and you need, it's called a payment gateway. That's the actual piece of code that sits on your site and accepts the credit card on behalf of the credit card company, which then deposits the money, if you're lucky, into your bank. So yes, you need all those things, but it's easy to use. On the other hand, Shopify I go Shopify, but Shopify, BigCommerce, and Magento 2, now you'll notice, oh, I can't go here. Okay, can't leave. You will notice, I will speak loudly. Oh, sorry, camera, I can't leave. Okay, I can't leave. Thank you. So you will notice that Magento is over here and over here. So Magento Community over here is the entry-level component of Magento, and Magento 2 is the enterprise version, which is much, much more expensive and closed. So you can change things in the Magento community side, but you can't change it on the Magento 2 side, on the enterprise side. And originally, it's my understanding that Magento had only the enterprise part, but they wanted to get into that piece of the pie also, because many people use it. All right, so these are the two types of platform. And as opposed to that URL that I showed you before from the LegalZoom site, which gave you something very inane. I'm sorry, you can't hear? Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, but then I can't gesticulate so well, because that means I have to keep my hand right here. So you know very well that Jews speak with their hands. Es geht nicht anders. So, okay, yes. All right.
So with the restrictions of proprietary, how you've gone to Shopify now, how did that deal with the fact that you need a lot of customization?
Okay, excellent question. The question was, we were in open source and we needed a lot of customization. How did we deal with the fact that we went to Shopify, which is much more closed and has less room for modifications? So the short answer is that we redid our business model. We rethought whether we were really offering our product in the most optimal way. So that was one thing. And we figured that we could actually fit into Shopify. And we are on a plan called Shopify Plus, which is the enterprise version of Shopify, because at the time that we considered Shopify, we were already at a sales volume level that would not allow us into any of the cheaper plans. That's number one. And number two, we found a really, really smart developing company. And, the guys who've been working with Shopify or Magento or BigCommerce or any of the other platforms, they know their stuff. And they know where they can mess around without causing a problem if there are later updates. By the way, if you go to the Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, I certainly know that's true for Shopify, I never see anything about an update. It just is. And nothing breaks, because they have massive amounts of teams dedicated to doing nothing but making sure that sites that are written to the specs of Shopify, Magento, and BigCommerce and behave don't run into trouble. On the open source side, you don't have that, because there's no mashgiach, there's nobody looking to make sure that you're not going to get yourself into trouble. So, and then if you want to find, what are the best platforms? So you Google. So you say, I don't know, what did I Google here? The best e-commerce platforms, or the best small business e-commerce platforms. You do that in 3, 4, 5 different varieties, different keywords, and usually the same ones are going to start bubbling up to the top. That said, you should still do your research and make sure that you find the one. Or maybe it makes no difference if your offering is not terribly complex. So then what happens, you find a developer. If you're going egg, chicken first, which is the developer in this case, then the developer should tell you, okay, I've developed, I'm getting into Gemara Lashon, that's terrible. The developer is going to tell you, I have developed in these languages or on these platforms, but this is the one that I'm most expert in. And that's generally where you want to go, because you want to go where your developer spends 95% of the time, not where they spend 5% of their time. The WooCommerce developer we had fantastic person, fantastic company. When we told them that we were leaving to Shopify, he said, oh, listen, I'll build a Shopify site for you. I know your product, I know your business, I know exactly what you're looking for. I can do that for you. And I said, Andrew, I love you, but you're not a Shopify expert. You're a WooCommerce expert. You're not spending your life in Shopify. Okay, what do the platforms offer? Now, many of them have the major components built in. If your product is not too complex, if you're not relying on a terribly difficult coupon or discount or pricing strategy, if you don't have to ship from 17 different warehouses and places, whatever, many of these platforms will have plans. And if you're not, you're not spending or already selling $5 million worth of product, although if you don't have a site, which all of you said you didn't, I don't know how you would do that. Okay, so there's a steer in Obey that we have a logistics problem here. They have pre-built themes. You go on and they're called themes. You get a look and feel, the same as a PowerPoint presentation, right? You can go into PowerPoint, you open up, you say, I need to create a new presentation. I said to my son, Adif, please, here's the information, make a PowerPoint for me. Because the last time that I used PowerPoint was in 2000, and it's changed a lot since then. So make a PowerPoint. I said, pick something that's relatively clean. I'd like it to be, a little bit elegant. And so this is what he picked. I said, okay, works for me. I'll get to ranges of prices of capabilities. And then you have to, again, worry about the hosting. Where is my site sitting? So some platform companies provide hosting. Shopify does. BigCommerce in several of their plans doesn't, and I think in the top tier plan they do. Magento does and doesn't. You can go either way there. And there's apps. You need apps. Apps are just pieces of code that don't come built into the platform that you are, and they're apps. And then you can do one-stop shop. Okay, this. Ignore, no, don't try to read the detail, okay, don't. The point that I'm trying to make here is that you are looking, for example, on this particular Magento page, at different capabilities, different things that the platform says, at this price point, notice no pricing, this is included. And at that price point, again, no price. There's lots more included. My son was doing some digging. He had to sign up, look through get through a demo to get me one of the pages that I wanted to have later on, because they don't like to give the pricing away. Now over here, if I remember correctly, this is Shopify. Now you notice it says Lite. And I don't know what you can do on Lite for $9 or on a website, but they say, okay, we connect to Facebook, and there's a Shopify buy button. I don't know what that means, but I guess you can click buy. The credit card, I guess. Online store, you already can't have that. Oh, but you can have point of sale. So you can get a terminal, and you can, for the $9 plan, you can connect Shopify to a terminal. You buy yourself a point of sale terminal where you can take credit cards or however that works out. But the important part here is that there are different price points, and they're typically dependent on volume. Okay, I now need to move. Sorry, I'm moving. Oh, I am not moving. I am moving. Okay. Okay. What I want to point out here is that this actually comes from a much, much larger page, and we compressed into the 3 or 4 lines that are important here. What you see is 3 pricing plans. An enterprise, so this is BigCommerce. I'm picking on BigCommerce simply because it's there. I could have picked on anything else. It was easiest to pick on them because they had the information in such a way. So what you'll notice here is you have the $30 plan, the $80 plan, the $250 plan a month, Pro. That seems to imply that it's a higher level, very high level plan. And then you have Enterprise. And Enterprise, in the Enterprise, the Plus, nobody ever tells you what that is, how much that costs. Now, watch this. That's line number 1. Line number 2 tells you that the trailing 12-month basis, if you sold less than $50,000 worth of product, then you qualify for this plan, all right? If you sold more, but less than $150,000, so triple the volume gets you a discount because $30 is more than a third of $80. then you have to go to that plan, the Pro plan, plus other capabilities, check marks in those columns that we saw before. And then it's $250, but only up to $400,000. And if you sell more than $400,000 in the BigCommerce case, then you need to go enterprise. And enterprise, you're starting to look at $2,000 and more dollars a month. Now in Shopify didn't force us to go to Shopify Plus, to the $2,000 or more per month plan, until we reached $1 million in sales. That's something to keep in mind that's important. The next thing is that how are you going to accept payments? Now if you go into Borough Park, Williamsburg, or what I would like to term the Heimische areas, okay, there are lots of companies that say, I do credit card processing for you. And I have the best rates and the best customer service, and I have the interbank rate, and it's very cheap, and it's going to be wonderful. Okay, so we had that. We had that with a friend in the 5 towns where I live, and he gave us what's called interbank rates. Interbank rates is basically made a penny or two at most on each transaction because he gave it to us basically at cost. So then what happens is, okay, I said, when we moved from WooCommerce, where we were utilizing these interbank rates, to Shopify, we said, okay, we're going to come in with that. And they said, sure, you can do that. Here are our rates, which were, so it's, again, it decreases as you generate more volume. So it's 2.9% plus 30 cents. So if you have plus 30 cents, you better hope that you're selling things at $40, $50, $60, $100, not at $3. Because 3% of $3 is 9 cents, plus 30 cents, then all of a sudden you've spent 39 cents of a $3 transaction just on the credit card charges. That's very, very high. So we said, fine, we will stick with our interbank rates. But then the next thing that happens, most of them say to you, okay, you can use your own payment processor, but we're going to slap on a percentage or a 30, 40, 50 cent surcharge. Processing, they call it a processing charge. And all of a sudden, the rate that you had, that you thought is so good, does not necessarily compare favorably with the rate that is being internally offered by your platform vendor. And so, is there anybody, okay, so this is a dangerous thing to ask. Has anybody seen Star Trek ever in the old days? Oh, man. Okay, there was an evil enemy called the Borg. The Borg, when they came in their starship, they said, thank you. They said, we are the Borg, resistance is futile, you will be assimilated. Which means everybody would become just like the Borg, meaning you were just sucked into that Borg universe. The same is true here. We at Shopify, we are hosted by them, we're getting the credit card processing done by them. They got us. They got us solid from beginning to end. So then as you evaluate, regardless of where you go, this is really, really important. Of all the things other than picking the right developer that I've said, this is very, very important. And we're running low on time and I have to go. Okay, now, how much do they cost? So this is what I had my son figure out by him signing up and getting somebody to contact him. And this is how you get the page. So look at this. Even the Magento Commerce Starter, like Shopify, is $2,000. Once you go to the Commerce and Pro, meaning larger companies, before you add anything else in, you're looking at $3,300, $3,400 a month. Those costs add up quickly, and when you originally establish your technology budget, you might not be thinking that it's going to be that much. You have to have that in there as you grow. Yes?
So what were you referring to as $2,000?
$2,000. That's like this.
But now this is like $3,400.
Well, that's a higher price plan. I was at $2,000 on Shopify, which was our entry level for what's called the Shopify Plus, which is the equivalent of Shopify, and which was like Enterprise over here. You just start.
That's significantly cheaper. You're saying
Well, but if you look here, it says recommended for large organizations who need enterprise-grade reliability and availability. Presumably, that means something that is much bigger and much larger than what's something that we are doing. It's probably into the hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. I don't know. Again, it's driven by volume. It is completely driven by volume. Okay, who remembers the Apple commercials? There's an app for that. Nobody. Come on. Are you saving me again? No, not this time. Okay, there's an app for that. Most of these things are not built into your platform. So let me give you some quick examples. Mail capture. We advertise on Facebook, on Google, on wherever we advertise, and we want customers to come our site and buy. But even if they don't buy, we want them to incentivize them to give us their email address so that we can later email them. So I want the email address, so there's a product called Just Uno, which allows you to get customers, we say, if you give us your email address, then on your first sale, you get, on your first purchase, you get $10, $15, $20 off. Okay, so now we got the email. Now the email goes into the email, where is it? It's not here. Wow, that's embarrassing. Okay, goes into the emailing program, because then we say, we have new shirts coming out. Here, go buy them. Or after the purchase has happened is, would you like to leave a review? So review programs. All these things most of these things in general don't come built into your platform. So now what happens is you want to chat, you want to do technical support chat, you want to have a little chat icon that you see on the side, you press the thing, would you like to chat with us? That doesn't come built in. You buy an app. This one's $50 a month, and this one's $79 a month, this one's $35 a month, and when we get our annual bill, our monthly bill, besides some really large applications for which, for example, we pay $600, $700, $800 a month. For example, the integration with QuickBooks. We are a business. We have to report to the IRS. We have to have an accounting. Everything has to match up. Are we making money? Are we not making money? So we use a QuickBooks. How do you integrate with QuickBooks? We had a disastrous 12-month experience with one vendor of a QuickBooks integration app that just didn't work. And by the time we were done complaining to Shopify, they were out of business. And we had wasted 12 months of development time. It was terrible. And we paid a bookkeeper a fortune of money to enter every single transaction manually into QuickBooks. Do the math on that. All the returns, digital ads, currency exchange. So when you go to China, you see a Twillory site in yuan, whatever that is. Canadian dollars, Australian dollars. Our website shows up in the native currency. All of these things, integrating with Facebook, imports. We can import 300, 400, 500 lines of product in one fell swoop. It's a new collection coming out, 10 shirts, 30 styles for each shirt. There's 300 lines of import right now. You don't want to manually create that product. You want everything to come through a CSV import, not necessarily native built into your platform. Now here's a tidbit. On WooCommerce, we ended up with over 50 apps, okay, because everything that we needed and all the things that were not built in. Remember, open source platform. Almost all of them had a bi-monthly update cycle to fix bugs or to put in a new feature. Almost all of them, okay? So that's 6, let's do the math straight. That's 6 cycles per year times 50 apps, very German, jawohl. 50 apps, that's 300 upgrades a year. Most of these upgrades break something that's now, no longer working properly. 50% of our developer dollars during our latter year on WooCommerce were taken up by testing and retesting and fixing things that were broken because of the updates that we had to endure. In some instances, they were forced updates. Why? Because something wouldn't work right the way we wanted, and the vendor of the app would say, are you on the latest version? So now, once you go to the latest version on this one, all of a sudden, if you're on the latest version of X, you have to be on the latest version of Y also. 50% of the development dollars in an open source environment over here were spent on testing and retesting, not counting the hairs that I no longer have and the time that I spend rather than building an operational model and improving the efficiencies of Twillory and working towards increasing sales. It was a horrible experience. לעומת זאת, as opposed to that, our life on Shopify, we've had 3 developers. Okay, so the first 2, remember Gigo, garbage in, garbage out? Listen, I've known this for 30 years. Hello? We made the mistake, we made the mistake of not very, very clearly identifying to our first and second Shopify developers exactly what components, exactly what. Can we have that back, please? We're still talking. Can we have that back, please? Yeah. So we didn't have that almost very soon. Soon almost. So we didn't identify it correctly for the developers. What we wanted to transfer from the WooCommerce site to the new site, and it didn't work out well. But we now have under 25 apps, and here they are. Okay, and we never, ever, ever, except once, have had to deal with an upgrade issue or with something not working due to an upgrade. Same yes.
Can we get a list of that?
You can. I can send you, if you leave me a card, I'll send you the presentation afterwards. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is Shopify specific, okay? And I can, what?
Because Shopify makes it seamless to
Yes.
run the updates that you don't even see, but they're
Correct. 100% correct. Look at the bottom in small text. It says choose from 1,000 plus apps that can extend your store's features. All these are verified. This is like the iMac, like the Mac and Apple environment that has everything tightly controlled. If you go to open source on WooCommerce, I think there's over 10,000. And they misbehave. They misbehave. So now, let's say you want to do it yourself. You're smart. This is my friend Jitsi. Jitsi built his own store on Shopify. He's on one of the lower level plans, I think the second or the third tier. I think he maybe pays $79 or $250 a month. He developed the whole thing from scratch by himself. He's an enormously talented photographer, so he did all the graphics and graphic design. He's a graphic designer also. He's a smart businessman. He did the whole thing by himself. And he made the following comment. I had 100 hours, but I didn't have $25,000 to build my site. So he spent the 100 hours or the 80 hours or the 120 hours or whatever it was, plus all the creative stuff that he did, and he did the whole thing himself. His company is called Haverdale, and I just got myself another, it's a code company, and he's a startup and he's working hard, but what he explained was that by having a platform with well-documented videos, all the platforms have really well-documented videos. They can literally walk you through building your store, integrating all the main pieces that you need, and he said, I watched all the videos, and I just built myself, took a theme, and I built myself a page. Then he found our model guy who does this, standing there, and he sent him some of his codes and I think some of our shirts. And the guy did the shots, and he has all the videos, everything that he needed. He's selling codes online. And what he said is it reduces the barriers of entry. You can just do it by yourself. There's nobody who can stop you from doing that. And he has less than 10 apps. I think he had 8. Okay. Sof davar hakol nishma. All right? So, somebody not understand Hebrew here? Okay. So, in the end, it depends. Machloket means it's a disagreement. You can go each and any way. Now, I will tell you that I'm a strong proponent towards platforms because they allow you to get started very, very quickly. You go online, you watch the videos, you insert the product images, and again, it depends on what you're selling. If you're selling a very complex product, it's not so easy to do that. But speed of development, let's say you have this most amazing product and you need your site up. You need your site up now. You can build an initial site on many of these platforms very, very quickly. There's good support on most of them. By the way, the technical support on the enterprise plans, the ones that are $2,000 or more, that's 24/7. You get your dedicated representative, and they respond very, very quickly, especially when there are technical issues or your site mysteriously goes down, which has only happened once to us. Speed of development, complexity. How complex is your product? We talked about all these things. And then go live, or what you can choose to do is you can go live right away and then say, okay, I'm selling 3 things every day for $100. And in another month and a half, I'll have the real site that I want to have to present my product, I'll have that up. So those are the very, very long thoughts on this actually very small topic, because platform versus custom is a small topic. But everything that goes around that is a very, very large topic, because you can make all the mistakes in the world before you ever ask your developer to code the first page. I hope this was useful in a way to, more than show you what to do, show you what not to do. If there's any questions, I'm happy to do that. I can give out my card or my email, which was on the slide, and go ye forth to whatever else there is. Thank you.